The Elm Hill City Zoo welcomes the herd of the beautiful Addax Antelopes. The Addax is a stunning new ungulate added to Planet Zoo with the newest arid animal pack. It is of course the African animal and we'll add it to the African section of our zoo. I tried to build a realistic habitat for those gorgeous antelopes and I really hope you guys will enjoy it. So without further ado, let's see how I created it. Hello guys, this is Cesar Creates and welcome back to my channel. In today's episode of your favorite Elm Hill City Zoo, we will build a very cool habitat for an animal that was recently added to the game with the Arid Animal Pack, and I am talking here of course about the Addax. The Addax is a very beautiful antelope. It has this like really bright, almost white coat with a very interesting looking horns. It is also critically endangered and it was really high on my wish list when it comes to the animals that I really wanted to see in Planet Zoo. So I am very happy that we can finally build a habitat for this animal. So we'll be building this habitat next to the Somali wild ass habitat that we added last time. So in case you guys haven't seen that video, I will of course put the link down in the description and on the screen so you can catch up. We are of course building this habitat in our African section of the zoo. The Addax is an African antelope, a desert antelope because it mainly lives on a desert and this like more arid climates. That's why it was included in the Arid Animal Pack. This habitat is located not only next to the Somali wild ass but also next to the zebra and wildebeest enclosure and opposite to the African crested porcupines and the Red River hawks. Our African section is growing. I am really happy to see that. The newest enclosures that we added are some of my favorites in the zoo, so I really cannot wait to see the finished section, how it will look in the end. I cannot wait to tour it, but there's still so many animals that I wanted to add to it, so I hope you guys are ready for this journey with me of adding all of those animals. But yeah, today we are adding a really cool animal and I am very excited about this. So for this habitat I wanted to do something like different, more unique. We've been doing a lot of those modes lately for the ungulates, so I wanted to try something a bit different. And I remember when I was building a habitat in the St. Reginald Zoo, when I did my guest build in there, I did something really cool for the wallabies and emus, if I remember it correctly. It was inspired by one of the habitats from the Lincoln Park Zoo, and basically the whole habitat was a bit like lower, like below the guest path. We had this like wall in the front, and on the top of the wall there was this like mesh that was a bit like, I don't know, tilted, and it was really overgrown by different creeping plants. It looks really cool. It also gave the animals some privacy, and I thought it looked really cool for that habitat, so I wanted to create something like this in the Elm Hill City Zoo because I really like this concept. So I just did that in today's video. So at the beginning of the video you could see me do some terraforming. I just, you know, measured how low I wanted this habitat to be in the front so it all looks good, so that the walls are not too low or too high. Then I added the actual walls and I also added the mesh on top of the moats. I of course skipped the parts when I copied those things over and over again to create the actual boundary of the habitat, but you guys probably know how I did that. Then I added some curbs to the paths. I also filled the space between the path and the wall with the mulch pieces. I added some small fences for the guests so that they don't, you know, leave the path or stand on the plants that we are about to add to have a better view for the Addax. Addax. I added, of course, the ivy and different like creeping plants on the mesh. Then I started to fill the space between the path and the habitats with firstly the buffalo grass, which I always use as a base for like planting like this. So I always add the buffalo grass at the very beginning, and then I start to add different plants. In here, I really wanted to build something that I saw in many zoos recently that I visited. I wanted to make the boundaries of the habitat like very overgrown with different plants and trees and so on, so the guests can only get the sneak peeks of the habitat from the certain points, so the animals are not so visible. The Addax is probably more like a shy animal, so it would appreciate some privacy, and we are able to achieve that because we added so many plants around it. And I guess if they will find like those peaks between the trees and different bushes, they will still get a really nice view for our antelopes. The only thing that was inspired by any zoo or anything was this like wall with the mesh on top. The rest was all my creation. I didn't, I wasn't inspired by any Addax habitat that I saw online or in real life or anything. I of course was inspired by different habitats that we have here in this section of the zoo to make it all look good and cohesive with this section. So the shelter that you'll see at the end is kind of like inspired by the shelters that we've been building in this area, but I still wanted to make it look a bit different, so I used different roof. I also did some different things that you'll see later in the video. I know that the habitats for the ungulates are not the most like exciting or most, I don't know, complex or anything like that, so thank you guys for still watching those videos. The Somali wild ass habitat video had some really amazing comments, really amazing feedback, so thank you guys so much. I really enjoy building for ungulates, as you guys know, so it means a lot that so many of you watch those videos. We will add some more in the future because I definitely want to add the dromedary camel to the zoo. I also want to add the Dama gazelle from the newest DLC, and of course the ones that we still don't have from the previous DLCs or from the base game. But soon there should be a break from building for the ungulates. We'll build for something really exciting, and it will be in the Desert Adventure Park, so I hope you guys will be excited for that. So yeah, the next Planet Zoo video will be probably from the other zoo that I have going on this channel, and when it comes to new zoos, I think that there'll also be a different series coming back on my channel, and from the totally different game. I mean, the Jurassic World Evolution 2 will continue the desert series, the Cretaceous Desert Park, so I hope you guys are excited for that. And yeah, this is all when it comes to the future of my channel and the schedule of the future uploads. Maybe not the schedule, because as you guys see, I am lately not on the schedule at all. Sorry for that, because in the last video I promised you that the uploads should be more like frequent, but they were not. Again, I had some different stuff going on in my life, like work, and also I was visiting Berlin. It was quite spontaneous, maybe not spontaneous because I really wanted to go, but I finally found a free weekend and I decided to go to Berlin, and I visited one of the best zoos that I ever saw in my life, the Tierpark Berlin. I just loved it so much. It was so huge. I was so like exhausted after this trip, but I saw so many animals for the very first time, actually, like really cool species, really cool habitats. I also saw the Addax, I also saw the Dama gazelles and many different animals that we see every day in Planet Zoo, so I was so excited for this visit, and I loved it. And the tour of the zoo is on my Instagram, the link is down in the description to all of my social media. So if you guys would like to see it, definitely go and check out my Instagram profile. Also here on YouTube there is a shorts from the zoo. I also uploaded reels to Instagram. I think about starting a TikTok actually with those zoo tours and so on, because I really enjoy making those videos, those short videos. They are really fun to create. So let me know down in the comments if you guys would be willing to follow me there as well. But yeah, you can expect more of those shorts and reels and so on in the future from my zoo visits, because as I said, I really love making those. I know that those are not as popular as my Planet Zoo videos, because you guys are probably here to see me build, not to go and be obsessed about animals in the zoos. But still, I really enjoy making those, so I will make more of those in the future for 100%. So if you like them, you can expect more. So as you guys can see, we are now done with all the things outside of the habitat, and we are focusing on actually decorating the habitat for the Addax. So the Addax being from those arid desert regions, I really wanted to make it look very like sandy and dry, but still fitting to the Elm Hill City Zoo vibe. It is still a temperate zoo, so there should be some greenery in it. I also saw that in that Addax habitat that I saw in the Tier Park, there were some plants, so it's not like they eat everything and this is all like plain and nothing grows there. So I really like this contrast between the actual like plants that are growing outside of the habitat and create those like a little, I don't know, boundaries or little barriers from the guests, with the very like dry and sandy habitat. So this is what I was going for. So I decorated this habitat with a lot of rocks. I also added only one tree because again I didn't want to make it too lush and overgrown. I added some bushes, though those diamond leaf willow bushes I think look really cool in comparison with the more like sandy textures of habitats like that. I think that their colors really match habitats like this, so I always try to add them in more like dry habitats. Of course, a lot of different grasses. I also love to add those new dry and dead bushes from the arid animal pack, especially to the ungulate enclosures, because it always looks to me like the animals ate the leaves out of the little branches, so they are just they are just dead because of it. So they're just little sticks or like little branches like poking out, and I think it looks so cool in habitats for those animals. I added a lot of logs as well, and what else? I added of course the guard for the tree, so that the Addax, I don't know, don't bite on the bark or don't use it to scratch themselves or don't destroy it with their horns and so on. I didn't want to go too overboard with the decorations, with the plants and so on, so that they still have a lot of free space for roaming around, running and so on. A lot of habitats that I saw in Tier Park Berlin for the ungulates were massive, big, they had a lot of space, so I was definitely inspired by that. But actually most of this habitat was built before my visit. I still added some things that I saw in the zoo, but I will talk about this in a second. But in the future you can expect many builds inspired by Tier Park Berlin, because I feel like the whole aesthetics and the whole vibe of the zoo just matches so well with my style of building in this game that I was so amazed. I was like, oh my god, I could build this habitat and I could build this habitat, maybe let's recreate this in the Elm Hill City Zoo and so on. So yeah, I really enjoyed the visit, and you will hear about this more in the future for sure, because I am so hyped about this zoo and about my weekend in Berlin in general, because there is still a kind of a surprise coming. I was able to record a lot of content for you guys from different places in Berlin, so you can expect something fun coming out probably next week. So yeah, I'm very inspired for my future builds, and this is a good news for you guys, because you should see more of the episodes coming, because I was like starting to build this habitat, I was a bit like, I don't know, drained. I didn't really want to do it, and that's why you also had to wait a bit more. I don't know, there's something always when I have to build in the space that is kind of like limited, because I already had the path, I already had one enclosure next to it, so I had to use this limited space. I just don't like it. I like to be free, but sometimes you just cannot. You just have to fill a space with the habitats, yeah, this is what I had to do in here. But in the end, I think that this is one of my best and one of my favorite enclosures for the ungulates in the zoo. I really love it. Like this little mesh thing with the plants on it did such a huge difference. And also we don't have too many enclosures that are just like a bit lower into the ground in the front, and then the animals are basically, if they go to the back, they're basically at the level of the guest or even a bit higher. I definitely need to do it more often because it creates a really cool effect. It looks really nice. Yeah, this is probably what I will do for my future habitats as well. But yeah, what I also added to this habitat is sort of like a feeder. I don't know if you can really call it a feeder, but this was something that I added after my visit to the Tierpark Berlin, and I saw that many of the ungulates in there are just fed from the ground. I mean, there's this like a square or a patch of laid concrete on the ground, and on this concrete you have some hay and some other like branches for the animals to eat and so on, or there's even not any concrete at all. So I was really inspired by this. I really wanted to create something like this for this animal, so I added of course some concrete pieces. I added some like hay beddings, different kinds of them, some leaves, and also some of those blue stem grasses in this like dry version. It really looks like hay or anything like that, so I think it's really cool. And later I also like covered the entire concrete with some decals. I of course added a lot of decals to this entire habitat to make the ground texture look a bit more interesting. This is something that I just love to do because I think it brings the whole habitat to life so much. And the other thing that I really love to do is add a lot of those buffalo grasses to the entire habitat and sink them a lot into the ground so that only like the little parts are poking out. It looks so amazing. I also added some leaves to this habitat. I also love to do it recently. Whenever I am adding the trees next to the habitat, I try to add some leaves like on the ground, beneath the trees or just near to the trees and so on, and again adds a little of realism and so on. The next thing that I did was the shelter and the holding pen. So the shelter, as I told you guys, was really inspired by the shelters that we've been building recently here. The first ones were basically the recreations of the shelters from the Berlin Zoo, but now we are building something that is more like inspired by it. I really wanted to create a circular shelter. This is still an African area, so I wanted to create something inspired by the typical African hut with the thatch roof on the as the roof basically. So I used the new thatch pieces from the tropical pack. I really love the colors on those, and yeah, to create a circular shelter I used a lot of this matte pillar technique. So I used it for the walls. I also used it to create the roof. The roof is just, you know, sloped, so it is slowly smaller and smaller the higher it is, so I had to do several layers of that. I also added the columns as we had in those previous shelters. I didn't show you making the interior, but the interior is like fully done, and I will showcase it in the cinematic shots by the end of the video. What I also did is create a small holding pen. I also love to do it every time and visiting the tier park only like showed me that it is really important, because basically in most of the ungulate habitats they had some holding pens and some separation, I don't know, areas and so on. So I really wanted to build something like that in here as well. And that was basically it when it comes to this episode. What I also wanted to tell you is something about the Addax. Like all the desert species, the Addax is really highly specialized to live on a desert. It has this white, very pale coat, so it reflects the color, the rays of the sun, so it doesn't get this hot. It also has white feet to help it walk on the sandy substrate, and they get most of their water from their food, so they practically don't need to drink water. They are of course also critically endangered, as I told you guys at the beginning of the video. Their population is dropping down, it is really low, and there's actually more of them living in captivity. In captivity there's around 2,000 of them, and there are less of them in the wild, but we are doing everything now to try to save them from extinction. So I know that there are some captive breeding programs that they are trying to reintroduce them to Morocco and places like that. So I hope that we'll be able to save this beautiful animal. And on that note, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Ring the bell if you want to be notified every time I upload a new video. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and leave me a nice comment if you liked the video and if you like the habitat. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys!